The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited Valoris Prime. Inside, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered under the soft blue lights. The air carried the scent of different atmospheres mixing together, filtered and balanced for all who breathed it. Daehyun stood in the human section, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Around him he could feel the stares, some curious, most fearful. It had been this way for 70 years since humanity first made contact with the wider galaxy. The Chitauri ambassador, Velthar, was speaking. His insect-like body clicked and chittered as the translator converted his words. The human presence continues to disturb the peace. 3 months ago, human mercenaries ended the Outer Rim conflict. A war that lasted 10 years finished in 90 days. His compound eyes fixed on Daehyun. This is not normal. This is not natural. Daehyun wanted to sigh but held it in. This conversation happened every few months. Different ambassador, same fears, same words. Orsin, the ancient reptilian who led the council, raised one clawed hand. His scales were the color of old bronze and his eyes held the weight of centuries. Ambassador Velthar, the humans were hired by your own alliance to end that conflict. They succeeded. Should we punish success? We should question how they succeed, Velthar shot back. His wings buzzed with agitation. They use tactics we consider disturbing. They attack at night when honorable species rest. They strike and vanish. They make the enemy fear shadows. This is not warfare. This is terror. A few other ambassadors made sounds of agreement. Daehyun noticed them all keeping their distance from the human section. Even in a room meant for peace, they feared Earth's children. Orsin gestured for Daehyun to speak. The human representative may respond. Daehyun stepped forward. He moved slowly, carefully. Sudden movements made them nervous. We fight to win, he said simply. When someone hires us to end a war, we end it. We use the tactics that work. We don't fight for honor or glory. We fight to go home. You fight like predators, another voice called out. This was a meridian, an aquatic species known for their peaceful nature. Your world made you into killers. Daehyun couldn't argue with that. Earth was a death world by galactic standards. 90% of known species came from planets with gentle weather, abundant food, and few natural threats. Earth was different. Earth had ice ages and heat waves. It had predators at every level. Humanity climbed to the top of the food chain not through strength or speed but through sheer stubborn persistence. Our world was hard, Daehyun admitted. It made us tough. But tough doesn't mean evil. We've been part of this council for 7 decades. We've followed every law. We've helped defend colony worlds. We've shared our technology. What more do you want from us? We want to not be afraid, Velthar said quietly. For once, his voice held no anger, only honesty. We want to sleep without wondering if humanity will decide we're in their way. The chamber fell silent. This was the truth they all danced around. Humanity was useful but terrifying. Human soldiers could march for days without rest. Human doctors could perform surgery on themselves if needed. Humans bonded with anything, even species that tried to kill them. They made friends with predators. They kept animals in their homes for companionship. They willingly put themselves in danger to save complete strangers. To the galaxy, this wasn't bravery. It was insanity. Daehyun looked around the chamber. He saw fear in every face. We don't want to hurt anyone, he said. We just want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's all we've ever wanted. Orsin studied him for a long moment. I believe you, the old reptilian finally said. But belief is not enough for the council. We must vote on new restrictions for human military operations. All in favor? Hands, claws, tentacles, and wings rose across the chamber. The vote wasn't even close. Later, Daehyun sat in his quarters aboard the human defense vessel Perseverance. Captain Yuna found him staring out at the stars. Another productive day at the council? She asked, settling into the chair across from him. They voted to limit our fleet movements, Daehyun said. We can't enter most systems without advance notice now. Security concerns, they call it. Yuna shook her head. They hire us to fight their wars, then act surprised when we're good at it. Can you blame them? We scare them, Yuna, and honestly, we should. She looked at him sharply. What does that mean? It means we forget how different we are. Jiho told me something yesterday. He was working with some Meridian scientists and one of them got a paper cut. Just a tiny cut on their fin. They had to stop work for the day. They needed medical treatment and psychological counseling. For a paper cut? For them, that's a serious injury. Their pain tolerance is nothing like ours, and we just wrap it and keep working. Daehyun leaned back. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to keep going no matter what. To them, that's not strength. That's horror. Yuna was quiet for a moment. So what do? We keep trying. Keep proving we're not monsters. Keep helping where we can. Daehyun managed a tired smile. It's what humans do. We're persistent. The communication panel beeped. Yuna tapped it and a junior officer's face appeared. Captain, we're receiving emergency signals from the outer colonies. 3 settlements have gone dark in the past week. Gone dark? Yuna stood. All 3? What happened? Unknown, sir. They just stopped broadcasting. We've sent automated probes, but those aren't responding either. Daehyun felt something cold settle in his stomach. Get me a secure line to the council now. As the officer worked, Yuna looked at him. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that something out there just became a bigger threat than us. Daehyun watched the stars. And I'm thinking the council is about to learn what humans are really for. In the darkness between those distant stars, something moved. Something hungry. Something that didn't care about honor or fear or politics. It only knew consumption. The Void Swarm was coming, though no one knew it yet. And when it arrived, the galaxy would learn that sometimes you needed monsters on your side. The colony of Haven's Rest should have been alive with activity. Instead, it was silent. Yuna stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, staring at the view screen showing the settlement below. Buildings stood intact. Power grids still functioned. But there were no life signs. None at all. This is the 3rd one, her first officer said quietly. 3 colonies in 2 weeks. All the same. Everything works except the people are gone. The investigation fleet had arrived 6 hours ago. Ships from a dozen different species orbited the planet, their sensors sweeping back and forth. They found nothing. No bodies, no signs of battle, no clues. Just silence. Send down the landing team, Yuna ordered. Full protective gear. Assume hostile environment until proven otherwise. On the surface, Hyejin walked through the empty streets. She was an engineer, brought along to check the colony's systems. Her boots echoed on the pavement. The sound felt wrong in the emptiness. Power systems are normal, she reported into her communicator. Life support is running. Food storage is full. It's like everyone just vanished in the middle of their day. She entered a home. A meal sat on the table, long since cold. A child's toy lay on the floor. Family pictures hung on the walls, smiling faces that were now gone. Hyejin felt her skin crawl. This wasn't right. This wasn't natural. Found something. Another voice crackled through the comm. It was Tae-Lin, a Meridian scientist. There's a data recorder still running in the colony's command center. It has the last few days logged. The team gathered in the command center. Tae-Lin's webbed fingers worked the controls, pulling up the recordings. At first, everything seemed normal. Colonists going about their work. Children playing. Normal life. Then the sky changed. It happened fast on the recording. The daylight seemed to dim, but not because of clouds. Something was blocking the sun. Something massive. The camera angle was wrong to see what it was, but they could hear the scream starting. What is that? Someone asked. The recording showed colonists running. They weren't running toward shelter. They were running in all directions, panic overriding sense. Then the first of them fell. Not from weapons fire. They just collapsed and their bodies began to dissolve, turn gray and crumble like ash. Turn it off, Hyejin said. Turn it off now. But Tae-Lin was frozen, staring at the screen. The gray dissolution spread across the recording like a wave. Buildings began to crumble. Plants withered. Even the ground itself started to break apart. And through it all, they could see something moving. Shapes in the air, thousands of them, like insects, but wrong. So very wrong. The recording ended. Static filled the screen. They were consumed, Tae-Lin whispered. Everything. The people, the buildings, the very soil. All consumed. Yuna received the report on the Perseverance. Her face went pale. Send that data to every ship in the fleet. Tell them we need to leave now, Captain, her first officer asked. Because if that thing is still here, we're all in danger. She was right. The swarm hit them 18 minutes later. At first, the sensors showed nothing. Then space itself seemed to shimmer and they appeared. Thousands upon thousands of objects. each the size of a small fighter but moving together like a single organism. They were dark, almost invisible against the black of space covered in something that absorbed light. "Evasive maneuvers," Una shouted. "All ships, scatter pattern Delta." The fleet tried to break apart, but the swarm was faster. It flowed through space like water, surrounding 3 ships before they could react. The ship's shields held for perhaps 10 seconds. Then the swarm covered them completely and the ships began to break apart. Not from weapons, but from something eating through the hull itself. "They're consuming the ships," someone screamed over the fleet channel. "They're eating through the armor." Panic filled the communications. Ships fired weapons into the swarm. Energy beams and missiles struck home, destroying dozens of the creatures. But there were thousands more. For everyone killed, 3 more took its place. The alien ships weren't built for this kind of battle. Their tactics relied on formation and coordinated fire. But this enemy didn't fight like anything they knew. It flowed and adapted, finding weak points, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. "All human vessels form up on me," Una ordered. There were 4 human ships in the fleet. "We're going to cut a path out of here. Everyone else follow in our wake." "Captain, we can't leave the others," her first officer protested. "If we don't, we all die." "Move." The human ships broke from the standard formation. Instead of trying to hold position and fight, they accelerated hard, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. They fired not at the swarm itself, but at the space ahead of them, clearing a path with explosive ordnance. It was brutal and simple. The kind of tactic the Council called barbaric. But it worked. The Perseverance's hull screamed as some of the swarm creatures latched on. Una didn't slow down. "Commander Bora, deploy the fire teams." In the airlocks, human soldiers in full combat armor opened the outer doors to space. They used welding torches and cutting lasers to burn the creatures off the hull. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was the kind of thing only humans would try. 6 ships made it out of the ambush. 4 of them were human. The rest were lost, consumed by the swarm along with 3,000 lives. Back at the Council station, emergency session was called. The surviving ships had shared their data. Every species representative stared at the recordings in horror. "What is it?" someone asked. Jiho stood up. The scientist had been studying the data for hours. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "We're calling it the Void Swarm. It's a hive mind as far as we can tell. Millions, maybe billions of individual organisms acting as one, and it's hungry." "Where did it come from?" Orson asked. "We don't know. Maybe it's always been out there in the dark space between galaxies. Maybe it's been dormant for centuries and just woke up. What matters is what it does." Jiho pulled up a projection. "It consumes everything, organic matter, metals, even soil and rock. It breaks it all down and converts it to more of itself. And it's spreading." The projection showed the swarm's projected path. It was heading toward the core Council worlds. "How long?" Velthar asked. His voice shook. 6 months, maybe less. It moves fast and it grows faster. Every colony it consumes gives it more mass, more creatures, more reach. The chamber erupted in panic. Voices overlapped, species arguing and shouting. Plans were proposed and dismissed. Nothing seemed adequate. Daehyun stood quietly in the human section watching. He saw the fear, the desperation. These species had known peace for so long. Their militaries were designed for defense and deterrence, not for fighting something that couldn't be reasoned with. Finally, he spoke. His voice cut through the noise. "It fights like we do." The chamber fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. "What did you say?" Orson asked. "The swarm. It fights the way humans fight. No honor, no hesitation. Pure survival instinct. Attack weakness, overwhelm defenses, adapt and consume." Daehyun met the old reptilian's eyes. "You're not prepared for this. Your military doctrine is built on rules and formations. This thing doesn't follow rules." Velthar clicked his mandibles nervously. "Then what do we do?" Daehyun didn't answer right away. He looked around the chamber at all the species who had feared humanity for so long. "You already know what you need to do. You just don't want to admit it." The silence that followed was heavier than any words. The war room deep inside the Council station had never felt so crowded. Military leaders from every major species stood around the holographic display table. The swarm's advance was marked in red, spreading like blood across the map of Council space. General Minho arrived with 3 other humans. He was older, with gray hair and scars that told stories of Earth's violent past. He didn't salute or bow. He simply walked to the table and studied the display. 12 colonies lost in the past month, he said. His voice was rough. Population consumed 4 million. Fleet losses 67 ships. Am I reading this right? Kylthor, the proud avian warrior, ruffled his golden feathers. Your tone is inappropriate, human. We are in mourning. Mourn later. Fight now. Minho pointed at the red zones. You've been trying to fight this thing for 6 weeks. Every battle you lose. Every strategy it counters. You know why? Enlighten us, Kylthor said coldly. Because you fight with honor. The swarm doesn't care about honor. It cares about eating and growing. You send your fleets in formation. It surrounds and consumes them. You try to hold positions. It ignores those positions and hits your supply lines. You fight the war you want to fight. It fights the war that exists. Another alien general, a crystalline being called Shirak, spoke up. We have run simulations. Every conventional strategy results in defeat. Our war computers project total council collapse within 4 to 5 months. Then stop using conventional strategies, said Suman. She was younger than Minho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You asked for our help. Here we are. But if we do this, we do it our way. No committee decisions. No arguing about honor or proper tactics. You give us command or we go home. The room exploded with protest, species shouting in a dozen languages. The translators struggled to keep up. Orsin's voice cut through it all. Enough. The ancient reptilian fixed his gaze on Minho. You understand what you're asking? Complete military authority over forces from hundreds of worlds? I understand you're dying, Minho said flatly. And I understand we're your only chance. You want to survive? This is the price, Velthar stepped forward. His insect body trembled. How do we know you won't use this power against us? Once the swarm is gone, what stops you from turning those weapons on the council? Minho looked at him for a long moment. Nothing stops us. You have to trust us. I know that's hard. I know you're scared of what we are. But right now you're facing something worse. So ask yourself, do you fear the enemy you know or die to the one you don't? The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would have strategic command of Council Defense Forces. That night, Suman briefed the human command staff. They won't like what we have to do. Their whole culture is built on direct confrontation and honorable combat. We're going to teach them to fight dirty. Can they learn? Someone asked. They'll have to, or they'll die. The training began immediately. Human officers were assigned to every major fleet. They threw out the old tactical manuals and started from scratch. Forget holding positions, human instructors told confused alien soldiers. If you're outnumbered, you retreat. Live to fight another day. That's cowardice, Kylthor protested during one session. That's survival, the instructor shot back. Dead soldiers can't win wars. You retreat, regroup, and hit them when they're not expecting it. The idea went against everything the avian warriors believed, but they learned. Human engineers taught them about resource denial. If the swarm is coming to a colony and you can't defend it, you evacuate everyone and destroy everything. Scorch the earth, leave nothing for them to consume. The Meridians were horrified. Destroy our own colonies? Better than letting the swarm eat them and grow stronger, Hyejin explained. She understood their pain, but there was no gentle way to fight this war. Every gram of matter they consume becomes another part of their mass. We can't let them have it. The Council forces learned guerrilla tactics, hit and run, ambush, misdirection, all the things they had once called dishonorable. Jiho worked with alien scientists to find weaknesses in the swarm. They dissected captured specimens, studied their behavior patterns, looked for anything that could be exploited. They're efficient, he reported after weeks of study, almost perfectly so. They consume everything with minimal waste. But that efficiency is also a weakness. How? Orson asked. They reproduce during the feeding cycle. When they've consumed enough matter, they create new organisms. During that reproduction phase, they're vulnerable. Not much, but enough. If we could hit them, then we'd need to get deep into their territory, Minho said. Past all their outer swarms. It would be a suicide mission. Then we find volunteers, Suman said quietly. The first major battle under human command took place at the Karis system. The swarm was advancing on a cluster of mining colonies. Standard tactics would have been to form a defensive line and hold. Instead, Yuna evacuated the colonies. Everything of value was stripped and removed. Then the human fleet set up behind the system, hidden in an asteroid field. When the swarm arrived, they found empty colonies. They began consuming them anyway, as expected. While they were spread out and feeding, the human fleet struck from behind. It wasn't a glorious battle. It was an ambush. Missiles and energy weapons tore through the swarm while they were distracted. When the swarm began to reform and counterattack, the fleet retreated. They didn't stay to fight. They hit and ran. The swarm lost nearly 30% of their mass in that system. Council forces lost only 5 ships. Kelthor watched the battle reports with conflicted emotions. "We won?" "We survived," Una corrected. "And we hurt them. That's how we'll win this war. Little by little, cutting them down every time they try to feed. But the colonies, empty buildings. We saved the people. That's what matters." Slowly, the tide began to turn. Not quickly, not easily, but it turned. The swarm's advance slowed. Council forces started winning more often than they lost. But everyone knew the real fight was still coming. Jiho's discovery about the reproduction vulnerability offered a chance to strike a devastating blow. But it required someone to go deep into swarm territory, into the heart of their mass, and plant a biological weapon. Nari volunteered. She was special forces, used to impossible missions. "I'll take a small team. Fast ships, stealth approach. We get in, plant the weapon, get out." "The chances of success are less than 10%, Minho told her honestly. "Then we better be really good at being lucky," Nari said with a tight smile. The mission launched 3 days later. 12 humans and 3 ships carrying a weapon designed to spread through the swarm's hive mind like a virus. If it worked, it would cause a cascade failure. The swarm would tear itself apart from the inside. If it didn't work, 12 more humans would be added to the list of casualties. The council watched and waited, and prayed to whatever gods they believed in that the monsters they had learned to trust could pull off one more miracle. Nari's ship slipped through the darkness like a shadow. Around her, the swarm moved in massive clusters, blocking out the stars. Her small team had been traveling for 6 days, using every stealth technology humanity had developed. So far, they remained undetected. 2 hours to the reproduction zone, her pilot Wanho reported. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. "Swarm density is increasing. If they spot us now, we won't be able to run." "Then they won't spot us," Nari said calmly. She checked her equipment one more time. The biological weapon was loaded into deployment canisters. Once released in the reproduction zone, it would spread through the swarm's network. At least that was the theory. Behind them, the war continued. Human tactics had changed everything about how the council fought. The transformation hadn't been easy. 3 weeks earlier, Kelthor had faced his greatest test. His wing of warriors was assigned to defend a colony world. When the swarm arrived in overwhelming numbers, Una gave the order to evacuate. "We can hold them," Kelthor had protested. "My warriors are ready to die with honor." "I don't need you to die," Una told him. "I need you to live and fight another day. Evacuate now." "That's an order." Everything in Kelthor's culture screamed against retreat. Warriors fought. Warriors held their ground. Warriors died with honor if necessary. Running was shameful. Cowardice, but he obeyed. His forces evacuated the civilians and pulled back. As they left orbit, Una's fleet dropped orbital strikes on the colony. They destroyed everything, leaving nothing for the swarm to consume but ash and radiation. Kelthor watched his world burn. "This is wrong," he said, his feathers drooping. "This is survival," Una replied. She understood his pain, but war didn't care about feelings. "Count your warriors, Commander." "How many did you lose today?" Kelthor did. 17 wounded. 3 dead from evacuation accidents, but nothing. In a direct fight, you would have lost all 3,000 warriors trying to hold that colony, and the swarm would have consumed it anyway. My way, you're alive. Your warriors are alive. We can fight again tomorrow. It took days for Kelthor to process this. His entire worldview was shifting. Honor meant nothing if everyone died. Glory was worthless if there was no one left to remember it. Slowly, painfully, he began to understand how humans thought. Survival first, everything else second. The transformation spread through the council forces. Alien soldiers learned to set traps. They learned to fake retreats that turned into ambushes. They learned to fight smart instead of fair. Jisoo, a human combat medic, taught alien medical staff new techniques. "You can't stop for every injury," she explained to a group of horrified Meridian doctors. In combat, you do triage. Save who you can, move on from who you can't. It sounds cruel, but it saves more lives overall. We cannot just leave the dying, one Meridian protested. You can, and you will, because if you stop for everyone, you'll die too. Then nobody gets saved. Jisu's voice softened. I hate it too. Every time. But I hate losing everyone more. The alien medics learned. They stopped trying to save everyone and focused on saving as many as possible. Survival rates improved. On the front lines, mixed human and alien units fought together. At first, the aliens couldn't keep up with human combat tempo. Humans could fight for days without rest, pushing through injuries that would cripple other species. How do you do it? A young Chitauri soldier asked Wanho after a brutal battle. The soldier had to be carried off the field after 6 hours. Wanho had fought for 20. Practice, Wanho said, wrapping a bandage around a wound he'd barely noticed. Humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. We got good at it. Now we're just pointing that skill at something that actually deserves it. But it wasn't just about fighting. Yejin worked with engineers from dozens of species to improve their defenses. Your shield technology is better than ours, she told them. But you use it wrong. You make big shields that protect everything. That's easy for the swarm to overwhelm. Instead, use smaller shields that overlap. If one fails, the others compensate. The engineers were skeptical, but they tried it. It worked. Ships survived longer. Colonies held out against attacks that would have destroyed them before. Back in swarm territory, Nari's team reached the reproduction zone. It was massive. A section of space filled with swarm organisms in the process of creating new members. They pulsed with bioluminescent light, beautiful and terrifying. Deploying weapon, Nari said. Her hands were steady as she released the canisters. They drifted into the reproduction zone, unnoticed among the millions of swarm creatures. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the canisters opened. The biological weapon spread like invisible fire. It was designed to disrupt the swarm's hive-mind connection, to make them attack each other instead of working together. At first, the effect was subtle. A few swarm organisms twitched oddly, then more, then thousands. The swarm began to tear itself apart. It's working, Wanho breathed. It's actually working. Time to go, Nari ordered. Before they figure out what we did. But the swarm already knew something was wrong. Organisms began converging on their position. Millions of them moving with purpose. We're not going to make it out, Wanho said, not panicking, just stating fact. Nari looked at her team. 12 humans who had volunteered for a suicide mission. They all knew the odds. Everyone got their messages ready. They nodded. Each had recorded final words for loved ones just in case. Then we make them work for it, Nari said. Buy time for the weapon to spread. Every second we survive is one more second it has to work. The 3 small ships turned to face the oncoming swarm. They fired everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, even their emergency supplies launched as projectiles. It was futile. It was desperate. It was human. They lasted 7 minutes. That was enough. Back in council space, sensors detected the change. The swarm's advance halted. Then, impossibly, it began to retreat. The bioweapon had worked better than anyone dared hope. The swarm was consuming itself. The hive mind fractured and confused. In the council chamber, Orson received the report. The swarm is in retreat. Nari's team, none survived. Daehyun closed his eyes. 12 more names for the list. 12 more families to notify. 12 more reasons to make sure this war ended. Their sacrifice won the war, Velthar said quietly. His fear of humans had transformed into something else over these months. Respect. Understanding. Maybe even friendship. No, Daehyun said. Their sacrifice gave us a chance. We still have to finish this, and they would. The council forces, trained and led by humans, pressed the advantage. They pushed the swarm back system by system. It was brutal work. Losses were heavy, but they won more than they lost. The swarm had been the ultimate predator. Efficient, ruthless, unstoppable. But it had made one mistake. It had attacked a galaxy, protected by an even more stubborn predator. Humans didn't fight to win. They fought to survive, and they refused to lose. Kyle stood on his ship's bridge, watching his warriors execute a perfect ambush. They moved like humans now, striking hard and fading away. No wasted honor, no useless glory. Just efficient, brutal survival. We've become like them, his second-in-command observed. No, Kael'thor said. We've learned from them. There's a difference. He watched the battle unfold. They didn't make us monsters. They made us survivors. The war ended on a Tuesday. At least that's what the humans called it. Different species measured time differently, but they all agreed on one thing. The swarm was finally contained. It had taken 18 months. 18 months of brutal fighting, of losses that made everyone weep, of victories that cost too much. The swarm wasn't destroyed, not completely. That might be impossible. But it was pushed back to its home system and locked behind a wall of automated defense platforms. As long as those platforms held, the swarm would stay trapped. The memorial ceremony was held in the council chamber. For once, it wasn't a place of politics and arguments. It was a place of grief. 50,000 names were read aloud. Every species that had died fighting the swarm. Every soldier, every civilian, every person who had been consumed. It took hours. Some species wept openly. Others stood in silence. Humans did both. Daehyun stood with the other human representatives. When Nari's name was read, along with her team, he felt tears on his face. He didn't wipe them away. There was no shame in mourning the dead. After the names, after the moment of silence, came the speeches. Leaders from every species spoke about courage and sacrifice, about how the council had faced its darkest hour and survived, about how they would rebuild and grow stronger. Finally, Orsin spoke. The ancient reptilian looked even older now, worn down by months of stress. We are alive because we learned to change. We are here because when faced with extinction, we set aside our fears and prejudices. We trusted those we were afraid of, and they did not betray that trust. His eyes found the humans in the crowd. We called you deadly. We called you monsters. We were right. But monsters, it seems, can choose what they protect. You could have used this war to conquer us. You had the power. You had the opportunity. Instead, you bled with us, you died for us, you saved us. The chamber was silent except for the sound of quiet crying. Therefore, Orsin continued, the council votes to offer humanity full membership without restrictions, an equal seat at our table, an equal voice in our decisions, if you will have it. Daehyun stepped forward. He looked around the chamber at faces that once showed only fear. Now he saw something different. Respect, trust, maybe even affection. We accept, he said, but we need to be clear about something. We didn't fight this war to earn your trust. We fought because it was right, because you needed help and we could provide it. That's what allies do. That's what friends do. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But remember this war. Remember what we're capable of. We will be your allies, your friends, your protectors. But pray you never give us reason to turn that capability toward you. We've shown you what humans do to enemies. You really don't want to see that again. The chamber stayed quiet. It wasn't a threat exactly, more like a reminder, a promise and a warning wrapped together. Belthar clicked forward on his insect legs. We understand, Daehyun, and we will remember. His compound eyes reflected the chamber lights. We were afraid of you before, we are still afraid, but now we're also grateful. Fear and friendship can exist together, I think. They can, Daehyun agreed, as long as we're honest about both. After the ceremony, Yuna found herself in a bar near the station docks. It was neutral territory where species mingled freely. She sat at a table with Kael'thor, sharing drinks. The avian warrior looked different now, less proud, more thoughtful. I hated you during training, he admitted. You made me question everything I believed about honor and warfare. I know, Yuna said. You told me. Several times. Very loudly. Kael'thor made a sound that might have been a laugh. You saved my life, my warriors' lives, by teaching us to run away. My ancestors would be ashamed. Would they rather you be dead and honorable? Probably. He ruffled his feathers. But I prefer being alive. I can do more good this way. Help more people. Protect more worlds. Maybe that's honor too. Just different than I thought. Elsewhere on the station, Jiho worked in his lab. The war was over, but the work continued. Samples from the swarm needed to be studied, understood, cataloged, just in case they ever broke containment. Tae Lin, the Meridian scientist, worked beside him. They had become close during the war, bonds formed in shared danger and long nights of research. "Do you think they'll ever truly trust us?" Jiho asked. "Or will they always see humans as dangerous?" Tae Lin's translucent skin rippled with thought. "Can I be honest? Always. You are dangerous. That's simply true. Your species frightens me on a biological level. Everything about you is designed to survive at any cost." She paused. "But I've learned that dangerous doesn't mean evil. You could have used your power to dominate the council. You didn't. That means something." "We're not heroes," Jiho said quietly. "We just did what needed doing. Perhaps that's what makes you heroes. You don't seek glory. You just solve problems." She gestured at the swarm samples. "This problem, the war problem, the trust problem, you approach them all the same way. Figure out what works, do that thing, move forward." On a rebuilt colony world, Yejin walked through new construction. The colony had been evacuated and scorched during the war. Now people were returning, rebuilding. Humans worked alongside Chitarii, Meridians, and a dozen other species, building homes, planting crops, making life. A young Chitari approached her. "You're the engineer who taught us the overlapping shield technique?" "I am," Eugene confirmed. "You saved this colony. The shields held long enough for everyone to evacuate." The young Chitari hesitated. "I was afraid of humans before. My parents taught me to be careful around your kind, but you saved us." "Why?" Eugene thought about her answer. "Because you needed saving. Because we could help. That's enough reason." "Is it really that simple for humans?" "Usually, yeah. We complicate a lot of things, but helping people? That's always been simple." She smiled. "Plus, if we let the swarm eat you, they'd just grow stronger and come after us next." Enlightened self-interest. The Chitari buzzed with laughter. "I think I understand humans now. You pretend to be practical and selfish, but really you just care too much." "Don't tell anyone," Hyejin said with a wink. "It would ruin our reputation." Back in the council chamber months after the war's end, business returned to normal. Bills were proposed, debated, voted on. Humans participated fully, no longer kept at arm's length. But the dynamic had changed. When humans suggested something, others listened. When humans warned about a threat, others took it seriously. Suman presented a proposal for a joint military academy. "We should train together," she said, "share knowledge, learn from each other. The war proved that cooperation makes us all stronger." The proposal passed unanimously. Late at night, Daehyun sat in his quarters writing letters. Letters to families who had lost someone in the war. Letters to Nari's parents, Wonho's sister, each member of the suicide mission. It was the hardest part of his job. The part that never got easier. Yuna found him there, staring at his screen. "You can't save everyone," she said gently. "I know. Doesn't make it hurt less. No, it shouldn't." She sat beside him. "The day it stops hurting is the day we become actual monsters." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Daehyun asked. "Taking command? Fighting their war?" "We saved billions of lives." "Yeah, I think we did the right thing." Yuna leaned back. "But we also showed the galaxy exactly how dangerous we are. That can't be undone. They'll never forget what humans are capable of." "Is that good or bad?" "Both. Always both." She smiled tiredly. "We're not perfect. We're violent and stubborn, and we solve too many problems by hitting them really hard. But we also care. We protect. We refuse to give up. The galaxy needs to know both sides of that coin." Far away, at the edge of swarm space, automated defense platforms kept their eternal watch. The swarm pressed against them constantly, testing for weaknesses. For now, the platforms held, But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the swarm tried again. When that day came, the galaxy would be ready, because humans had taught them how to survive, how to fight smart instead of honorable, how to do whatever it took to protect what mattered. The galaxy had called humans deadly. Then came the day they needed that deadliness on their side, and humans, being human, had answered that call. Not because they wanted glory, not because they sought power, but because someone needed help and humans never could resist helping. That was the real truth about humanity. They were dangerous, yes. Violent, absolutely. But they were also stubborn enough to care about strangers, foolish enough to protect those weaker than themselves, and loyal enough to bleed for those they called friends. The most dangerous thing about humanity wasn't their capacity for violence. It was their refusal to let the ones they protected face danger alone, and the galaxy, finally, understood that.